computer. Let me. Okay. All right. So now that we have that figured out, we kind of, have a general idea of what we should say when it comes to the deaf community, when it comes to the deaf community, when it comes to the deaf community. Now, let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer here. Do all deaf people sign? Answer me that. Do all deaf people use sign language? That's the question. Do all deaf people use sign language? Answer me this in the chat. You can say yes, you can say no. I'm not even sure. Let me know what you think. Do all deaf people use sign language? And I'm not even sure which device I'm actually on over here on Zoom. It says I'm still on Zoom, but on my end, it shut down. So I'm not even sure. Okay, Bernie says no. Emma, you can't play. Absolutely not. No, some know how to read lips. Okay, that's a whole nother conversation piece about the lip reading thing, but we'll take that for right now. Absolutely. All deaf people do not use sign language. They do not use sign language for their mode of communication. So that's a misnomer if that's what you thought. So now you've been corrected. But here's part B of that question. Okay, you say all deaf people don't use sign language. Do all deaf people read lips? Answer me this. Yes or no on the lip reading part. Do all deaf people read lips? Okay, Miss Phyllis says, I would say no because some people may not have hands. Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to think it through. Okay, I like this. I like that you're thinking it through. Jennifer, I hadn't heard from you. Laura, I hadn't heard from you. Nilda, I haven't heard from you. So, I mean, Jessica, rather, I'm sorry, I said Jennifer. Do all deaf people read lips? That's part B of that question. We determined that all deaf people do not use sign language, SIGN language, for their mode of communicating. Okay. So, do all deaf people read lips? Okay. Maybe you've been a big fan on television watching shows like CSI over the years, and where one of the actresses would stand across a room 900 miles away from a person speaking, and she was able to zoom, 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 zoom in and read lips. Y'all, that's Hollywood. I'm not allowed to answer. That's right. Okay, so that's Hollywood, y'all. All deaf people do not use sign language for their first language or for a mode of communication, nor do all deaf people read lips. Let's deal with the whole sign language piece. Many times, particularly based on the era they grew up in, a lot of times you're going to meet, or if you get a chance to meet a deaf person that at this point, that's, let's say, 45 years plus, they may have grown up in a situation where they were not allowed to use sign language. Okay? They were not allowed. They may have been prohibited from using sign language at home. They may have been prohibited using sign language even in an educational setting. I have friends that are a little older than the 45 that I just talked about. I say, well, I'll go as low as 45. But I have several deaf friends that have shared with me over the years and have shown me evidence of busted knuckles where they were not allowed to use their native language. Can you imagine that? It's abuse, isn't it? It's abuse. And so many older deaf adults um, will use sometimes a form of sign language. Oftentimes, they will use their voice, and their voice will sound a little bit muted, if you will. Okay. You'll be able to tell by the tone and the sound of their voice that maybe they have some deafness going on. Maybe they're hard of hearing, maybe something is going on. You could tell by the tone. Um, it's just not a good situation. And without me going too deep, because that's a totally different lesson, and I don't want to get stuck on that tonight, but allow me to say that it's not easy growing up in a household where you are deaf, you're hard of hearing, and you're the only one in that household, and nobody speaks your language. Now, I just want you to imagine that because it's more common than not where you're the only deaf or hard of hearing, severely hard of hearing person in your household, and nobody speaks your language. Everybody wants you to speak their language. And that's how you're raised. As far as the lip reading, the percentages on that, y'all, is so low with the lip reading. Okay. And even if one thinks that they do well with lip reading, and some do, they're not getting 100%. They're not getting 90%. They're not getting 80% of every word muttered. The percentages are very low, and they're going to vary. Vary on what? They're going to vary based on the speaker's ability to properly enunciate. Okay, so I don't want to get too deep into that. That's a major lesson I can bring to you, but we're not going to do that because we're doing a general deaf awareness night. Okay. All right. Some sub vocalize as well. Absolutely. Okay. So I'm not sure that I know that term, sub vocalize. Are you talking simultaneous communication? I'm not sure I know that term. If you give me a little more hint, maybe I can elaborate on that. Okay. All right. So while she's doing that, I want to, and that's my daughter, by the way. She's a master certified interpreter. I'm so proud of her. She travels the world literally, making sure that the deaf in different parts of the world, I know this is going to blow your mind, that the deaf in different parts of the world will have access to the word of God. She literally travels the world and back. And I'm so proud. Oh, yes, with the whispering. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So sometimes you'll see that, where they know that you're hearing and maybe you don't know the language, and this is how they grew up, and so they'll give a whisper so that you don't get that tonal deafness sound, if you will, when you're communicating with them. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. All right. So let's talk about sign language. You hear I keep saying sign language. I'm not saying American Sign Language. And I'm not saying any other kind of sign language. I'm just using a general term, sign language. Sign language. Because now my question for you is, every country, every continent, every tribal group, we can even say some of the states, some of the communities here in the United States. My question for you is, do everybody that uses sign language use the same sign language? That's my question for you. So if I'm in Turkey, if I'm in Greece, if I'm in Israel, if I'm in England, if I'm in Portugal, well, I'm trying to say, Chad, I can't even say what I'm trying to say. I'm so tired. If I am in Zimbabwe, if I am wherever, do everybody use the same sign language? Somebody answer that for me. Portugal. I tried to say it. If I'm in Portugal, if I'm in France, Germany, do everybody y'all use the same sign language? If I'm in DC, if I'm in Florida, if I'm in if I'm in Washington State, if I'm in California, if I'm in the fields of Iowa, do everybody use the same sign language? That is my question for you. And this will be recorded and put on our YouTube channel as well, okay? Believe it or not, you would think I'd be too embarrassed to, but I'm not. Mm-mm. That's a good answer, Bertie. Bertie saying, I'm not sure about that. Well, the answer is no. No. Just like there are different spoken languages, we speak English. At least I try to speak English. I mean, I don't do a real great job with it, but I try to speak English, or some people speak Spanish. Some people speak French or Creole, which is a variation, right? Okay. Some people speak Chinese or Arabic or whatever. All these different languages, Greek, and you just name it. There's so many Mandarin. There's so many different languages, right? Amongst hearing people. Well, guess what, you guys? It's the same with sign language. There's a such thing as Spanish Sign Language or Chinese Sign Language. Yes. Or French. Yes. Or Brazilian. Huh? Or Hebrew. Who knew? Yes. So when we on the home front, and what I mean by the home front, talking US of A, oftentimes when you see sign language classes being offered, they will use a descriptor of American Sign Language. Okay, American Sign Language. You'll see that. As you get deeper, and I'm not going to go there tonight because that's a whole nother class. We could talk about English, exact English is what I learned for many, many years. Exact English, where it was more of a word for word situation. And then my son grew up and became a tween, a preteen, and he went off to the school for the deaf there, and came back with a whole new language on his hands. And his mama was like, what in the world are you talking? Because I'm talking this. What you talking? So it's a different language. Even here in the US, we have variations and different types of sign language. Okay. Let me see. Last count was 345 different sign languages on a global level. Y'all, that's coming from my daughter, my goddaughter, my spiritual daughter that I just told you literally travels the whole world, making sure that there are people's groups that don't have access to the Word of God because sometimes they don't even have a sign language. Can you imagine that? Different little groups of people, tribes of people that live maybe in the mountains, and they, and they don't have maybe they have a home sign, but they don't have a national language. And that's what she does. And I'm so proud of her. So she just said 345 different sign languages on a global level. Is that cool or what? Yeah. And then Phyllis said, I would like to learn sign language. I've seen medical personnel struggle. This is why I do what I do. Struggle to understand deaf patients in healthcare. Um, Yeah, in healthcare settings. I even see the need for more interpreters in ministry. Absolutely. Anywhere there's communication, the need for a sign language interpreter is present. And I do a workshop that talks about coming out of the box, thinking out of the box, signing out of the box, because there are so many opportunities to be able to effectively use sign language. Yes, yes, so many different opportunities. I know, I'm so proud of her. Okay, so now here's another question. You guys are doing awesome. Here's another question for you. I live in the state of Florida. I live in the state of Florida, SFL. Okay, land of Mickey. All right. Now, my question for you is twofold. Do we have a state school for the deaf here in Florida? And if so, where is it? Okay, somebody answer that. Put your answer in the chat for me. Do we have a state ran school for the deaf? And if we do have one in the state of Florida, where is it? Now, if you're from another state, let me know whether or not your state has a school for the deaf. And if yes, where is it? What city is the state school for the deaf located? Not allowed to answer. Somebody said, don't know. Okay, good answer. Good answer. That's why we're here. That's why we do chit chat chatteroo, because it is about bringing awareness to different subject matters. And if you miss this month so far, we've talked about suicide prevention, we've talked about sickle cell, and tonight we're talking deaf awareness. So this has just been awesome. Yes, somebody come on to the table and answer me this. Do we in the state of Florida or whatever state you're in, do we have a school for the deaf? Deaf, not deaf. Deaf. And I want you to practice that. Two different sounds, two different spellings, okay? Do we have a school for the deaf here in the state of Florida? If you're not in Florida, let me know whether or not you have one in your state. And if so, where is it? Okay? All right? I want you to think that through and answer. If you don't know, say you don't know, and I'll go ahead and answer. We had one don't know so far, and then another not allowed to answer. Tee. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that while you guys are thinking it through. In the state of Florida, we do have a school for the deaf and the blind. And at one time, it was considered one of the premier schools in the United States. It is one of the oldest, if not the oldest. Bernie, good answer. In the United States. Well, it's not the oldest, we know that, but it's up there. It's one of them. We do have a school for the deaf, and it is called the Florida School for the Deaf and the Blind. We've had people such as Ray Charles attended that school. I know you would know him. The school is actually located in the oldest city in the U.S. What city is that? Anybody know what city that is? The school is actually located in the oldest city. And I'm so sorry. I've got all this congestion going. That's why I'm sipping on orange juice. I don't even like orange juice, but I'm trying to clear my whatever nasal passages or something. The name of the city is St. Augustine. So the school for the deaf and blind in the state of Florida is located in St. Augustine. And this is actually a sign, it's eyes, right? And they use that sign almost like school, institute, so it's the school or the institute for the deaf and blind, and it's in St. Augustine. Is it Winter Park? No, right. No, no, no. It's in St. Augustine. Okay. I have two deaf adult children, as you know, age 41 and 39 now, Mimi and Reggie. And Mimi was a gift to us when she was 12 years old. God blessed us with her. And by the time we got Mimi, she had been at the school for the deaf and blind. She spent her formative years there, if you will. But some things just didn't work out for her. So by the time we adopted Mimi, we brought her back to the public school system. And so she was raised in our home, going to the public school system, okay? Which that happens often. And when our deaf children go to the public schools, they have what we call an IEP, individual. No, that's independent. Individual. Individual. Oh, I can't even think. It's too late. Individual. Individual. It's personal. In other words, educational plan. That's a whole nother situation. And with that educational plan, it is decided along with the family, the parents, and all of the powers that be, all of the specialists and this and that. What is it that this child needs, this student is going to need in order to effectively learn to thrive? And oftentimes in an IEP, particularly when there's a hearing loss, deafness, hard of hearing, whatever, when there is a documented hearing loss that's severe enough to warrant a sign language interpreter, an interpreter will follow that student throughout his or her education to the different classes. Okay. All right. Does that help? New Jersey has schools for the deaf, but they are located in North Jersey. Pennsylvania has 3 deaf schools in the Philadelphia area. Very good, Phyllis. Very good. And you guys have a really rich education system up in that area. Okay. So when a child or a student attends the state school, traditionally, unless the family lives close by, and they could be a day student, which in my opinion is ideal, that child becomes what we call a residential student. And so they literally stay on campus all week, and then they come home. Your tax dollar pays for all of this. They come home on weekends. And our Reggie had the opportunity to attend the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind, starting at the age of 12. I kept him home for his formative years. And then by the time he was 12, and we did the touring, of course, he wanted to play football and all the things like all the other kids. And we made the decision as a family to allow him to go to the School for the Deaf and blind. They're in St. Augustine. That was not an easy decision. And you can see, even after all of these years, my baby's 39 now. And after all of these years, I still have a little angst, even when I talk about it today. So God is graciously good. He did get a good education. He does really well for himself in terms of being able to effectively maneuver in this hearing world. What kind of world is it? It's a hearing world. Am I right about it? It is. This world is not designed for deaf people. And so they have an extra set of obstacles that they have to go up against. Okay. All right. So now we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that I get a few other things covered. We're going to just learn a little something about ASL. So there's one thing called signing. Okay, so you sign. This is sign language, right? You sign, right? So you're giving it out. Okay, so when you're looking at a church service, or you're looking at the news, maybe a presentation, maybe a presidential address or something, and you see that interpreter just doing his or her thing, blah, 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 blah. They're giving it out. Okay, that's equivalent to blah 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 blah. They're giving it out, right? They're taking it in, and I'm just saying this in layman's terms, okay? So I have a source language over here. I have a speaker. Maybe it's the pastor. Let me go that route with you. Here's the pastor. Here's the president. Here is the doctor. Here is the nurse. Here's the whoever, the pharmacist or the attorney or whoever that is blah, 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 speaking, right? The sign language interpreter is taking it all in. It goes here, and then it goes here. They take it all in. They process that thing. And this is happening in many milliseconds, right? They process that thing. And they process that thing. They don't stop speaking so that processing could take place. They're still speaking. And all of those processes are taking place. And guess what? And then it comes out on the hand. It's a lot of work, y'all. It's a lot of energy. I still do some interpreting. I have backed it up a lot, because I'm getting older. I know my limits. I know what I want to do. I know what I don't want to do. That's a whole nother lesson to teach, because there's so many options. There's so many needs, and so I still allow God to use me. I'm not saying that I just stop, because we can't. We can't. The needs are great. The need is great. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Okay? So there's the interpreting going forth. But there is, and we call that expressive. Okay? There it is. We call that expressive, right? But then the receiver, if you will, the person who is receiving the language from off by hands, the consumer, okay? Think of it that way. The consumer, the receiver, okay? They then have to do what we call receptive. They have to receive the language. So here's the language being expressed, and here's the language being received. Here's the language being expressed. It comes right out on the hands. Okay? Sometimes it's also here. Okay? Simultaneously communication. Say that all wrong. Simultaneous. Oh, Lord, it's late. Simultaneous communication. In other words, it's coming out at the same time. Okay. But then somebody has to receive it. Somebody has to receive it. Okay. Now, look at this. I hope you guys are following me. I'm trying not to give you too much, but I want you to walk away with a good understanding tonight. If I'm the deaf person, if I'm the consumer, if I'm the deaf person, I'm the consumer, and you are the interpreter, and you are giving me a language expressed on your hands. Okay, you see that? And I'm receiving it because I'm the deaf person. I am the consumer. I can only consume it if I understand the language, right? So the skill set that I have to have is called receptive skills. Receptive, receive it, receive it. This is how the deaf receive it right here, their eyes, they're receiving it, right? Now, sometimes, oftentimes, more often than you probably would imagine, I, as the interpreter who does all the giving, the expressive, and my consumer over there is deaf, oftentimes, depending on the setting, think about a doctor's office. And that deaf person, that consumer, is being asked questions by the doctor. I'm expressing, they have to answer. Guess who gets to be the receiver at that point? Then I receive the sign language from the deaf consumer. And then I voice to the hearing doctor. Did I just make sense to you? Tell me if you understood that. Let me see. Expressive and receptive skills. Did you understand? Say yes, both, or no, both. And then I'll know what you're responding to. So you can see that it's a really complex situation. It's literally a miracle. But the deaf are dependent on that communication. Now, today, and we don't have time to get into it, I'm so grateful for technology, y'all. I remember when my kids were teenagers, and if you remember, how many of you guys remember sidekicks when they first came out? They were almost like a paging type system. I remember when the sidekick came out and you open it like this, and then it was, just texting. It was not a smartphone by any means, but that opened a major door of communication for the deaf community. Can you imagine how God is blessing now? Yes, but interpreters are very much still needed. I don't care how much captioning y'all got going on. I don't care how much pencil and paper you got going on. Knowing their native language helps. It really does. Yes, both. Yes, both. Very good. Very good. Okay. Everything in ASL is from the signer's perspective, meaning things are described as they appear to who? The signer. Things are described as they appear to the signer. Okay? And that's why I'm so tired all the time. All right? So I'm going to pretty much stop right there tonight. I've got so much I could give you. I wanted to talk about the 5 parameters of a sign that deals with the hand shape, the palm orientation, whether it's facing forward or it's facing this way, the way that sign moves, the placement on the body, and the facial expressions. I really wanted to talk about all of that, but we'll have to do that some other time. I'm going to pause to see if any of you have any questions that I can answer. Anybody have any questions that I can answer tonight? Yo, I have no idea whether I'm recording on Zoom. Well, it says Zoom, but it turned off over here, so I don't know what's happening, child. And then I'm live over here. So I'm not sure what I got going on. I don't know. Okay, anybody else have any questions? The 5 perimeters or the parts of a sign. For example, let me give you one. Okay. So I'm going to sign, what can I do? Birthday. Okay. So birthday. Is that a good one? Let's do mom. Let's do mom. Mom. And that's dad. Mom. Dad. Palm facing out. Mom, I'm right-handed. So my palm is facing this way. If you're left-handed, your palm will be facing going to the right. I'm right-handed, so my palm is open going to the left. Mom, mom, dad. Okay. So with the handshake, we would call that a 5. That's the number 5 in sign language. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that's the handshake, flat hand or 5 hand. We're taking the thumb and we're putting it on our chin. That's mom. Put it at the top of your head. That is dad. Mom, dad. That's the movement. That's just it. Mom, dad. Now, if I want to say grandma, I bring it out. That's the movement. Yeah. So I would say 5 hand, mom out once, forward or something of that nature. That would be the movement. The placement on the body is very specific. It's at the bottom of the face. It's on the chin. It's not over here. It's not over here. It's not back here. It's not on top. I told you if I put it on top, it changes the sign. It changes the meaning. The sign now becomes father if I put it here. If I move it and bring it out, it becomes grandfather. If I bring it out, it becomes grandfather. If I put it down here, it's mother. If I bring it out, it's grandmother. If I bring it out, it's grandmother. So the movement and the placement is really important. There are 5 perimeters for the most part to every sign. And then the facial expressions. That's your mom. I don't have to say, is that your mom? That's English. We use too many words. My baby used to tell me that all the time when I was first learning sign language. He would say, "Mom, just too many words. In other words, you talk too much." Okay. I don't have to say, "Is that your mom?" It's signing exact English. In ASL, is that your mom? And look where the question is on my face. Eyebrows did what? What happened to my eyebrows? Tell me, what happened to my eyebrows just then? Huh? Even if I put my glasses on and you just walked in the room, okay, and then this other lady walked in the room and I'm talking with you and I look at you and I say, the question is whether or not that's your mom. And you saw the question where? In my eyebrows. Right there. So that's the facial expression. Did you guys get that? So you know mom and you know dad. Mom, dad, granddaddy, grandma. Mom, dad, granddaddy, grandma. Mom, dad, granddaddy, grandma. Auntie, 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 uncle, auntie, uncle. That's a U. That's a A. Cousin, girl cousin, or just cousin. Niece with an N. Nephew. But look at the location. It's very important. Because if I'm trying to say nephew, I don't need to be down there. Huh? Oh, okay. Nephew, niece. All right. But y'all probably about as tired as I am because I'm exhausted. Any questions for me tonight before we hang up? Okay, we'll be back next week with a continuation of the lesson. Next week we'll talk about just some basic conversational signs. That's my goal next week. Bernie, this was very informative. Good, thank you. Um, and you never know what situation you may find yourself in where these conversational type signs come in handy. You know, do you need help? Or would you help me? Look at that. You need help? Would you help me? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mama. Phyllis, no, thank you so much. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. You guys say that. Thank you. All right. You know who I am, Earlene Bloomhagen, and I challenge you to carry on. Don't you dare give up. Don't you back up. Don't you shut up. Don't you throw the towel in. As a matter of fact, don't you even think about it. You carry on. You carry on. Carry on with the cuteness, because you know I will. Okay? Blessings on you. I love you guys. I really do. Bye.